Hello, friends from the Great Commoner in West Dearborn. This is your Daily Detroit for Friday, March 3rd, 2023. I'm Jer Stays, and of course, we are in Dearborn. So who else is next to me then?
Devin O'Reilly, you got Friday, you got it in Dearborn. Of course I'm here, and we are at the Great Commoner having a great Friday.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I can't really say I'm from east of Woodward when I'm this far west. I mean, I'm from east of Woodward.
You are from there, but you are currently west of Woodward.
Quite west,
Welcome.
In fact. Well, it's so good to see you, and we're going to start the show with a great conversation with Sam Abbas of Detroit Restaurant Week and the Great Commoner and Brome and a bunch of other things. So let's get into that first. We're here to talk about Restaurant Week. With us is Sam Abbas. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Daily Detroit.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure. You know, Devin O'Reilly, I'm so glad to be in your part of town with this because Restaurant Week in Dearborn has really become quite a thing.
I'm really happy to welcome you to my hometown. We talk Detroit, we talk all over Michigan on the podcast, but you know, I always like to give Dearborn some love, and we've got Restaurant Week basically kicked off. If you're listening to this, Restaurant Week is kicked off. So I'm excited. I know Sam is, and ready to talk about it and let everyone know what it's all about.
So Sam, how did Restaurant Week get started?
So we originally started it in 2017. We just noticed that, you know, the downtown just didn't have a draw for restaurants, and we thought it was a great way to bring exposure to the restaurants. It's a nice way for people to be able to kind of test out, you know, the different cuisines. It's at a discounted rate with a prefix menu. So if you've ever kind of on the fence about trying a new place out that you heard about or saw on social media, it's your opportunity to do so.
And it's been around for a few years, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's tons of downtowns that do it as well. So we thought, why not jump on board?
Again, I'm speaking with a little bit of bias here, but people can find out for themselves. This has to be the most diverse restaurant week in terms of the offerings. I mean, you have everything from burgers at Ford's Garage, hot chicken from Dave's, to Yemeni coffee, to Galata Sweets, Gâteau Patisserie, Haraz Coffee, Lapita, Lashish, some of the
food too.
Some of the Mediterranean standards. Yes, you have some of the Mediterranean standards. I mean, a lot of people know places like Lashish, Lapita, Alamir, but there's a ton of other places, other kind of regional cuisines, really, really good food that you can kind of try out and really dig into all that Dearborn has to offer.
Is that part of the pull? You know, I'm thinking about restaurant weeks, and one of the great things about them is to get people going around the region to try different places. Maybe you live in Plymouth, maybe you live in Grosse Pointe, maybe you live in Detroit, maybe you live in Ferndale, to take a drive and try some of these places.
Absolutely. I mean, when I think about restaurant weeks, it's a draw for me. So I love to drive into Ann Arbor for their restaurant week, or Birmingham for their restaurant week. It's an opportunity for me to go and try a couple new different cuisines. So we'll actually pick one or two restaurants, and you know, we'll space it out over the week, and my wife and I will go and try it out. And it's a great way to do it because you're not paying at that, you know, at the full price, just in case, you know, you're unsure of it. And then if you love it, you end up being a return customer. So,
you know, another thing you could do too is say, go to one place, do a little bit of shopping, and try another place.
Yeah, you really could. I mean, given again the diversity of the cuisine, you have everything from, you know, you can come into Dearborn in the morning, get some coffee, get some sweets. You've got places to get breakfast, like the Great Commoner. You have plenty of lunch options, obviously plenty of dinner options, and then you got some desserts on the back end or some coffee on the back end. So you could really kind of make a day of restaurant week coming in here, checking out all the different restaurants, and there's something for kind of any time of day or any appetite.
Well, I have a secret to reveal with listeners that Devin actually likes sweets. You actually like food a lot.
I do. We don't. Yeah, I think is that a secret, Jer?
Who doesn't like sweets though?
That's true. So what are some of your favorite places around town with this? I know picking favorites isn't something that you like to do, but what are some of the places that you enjoy a lot in this list?
I honestly, I cannot narrow it down to my favorites. I eat everywhere. One of my favorites, I'm not going to say favorites, but one of the places I frequent that has a unique offering, I don't know if you guys have ever been, but Dearborn Meat Market. It's actually kind of Warren and Schaefer area. They've got an old school charcoal grill, serving up meat skewers, hummus, tabbouleh, fattoush. I mean, just an incredible menu, incredible offering, super unique. I've never seen it done anywhere else. They also double down as a meat market as well. But then there's also places like Tria inside of the Henry. So You could go anywhere from fine dining all the way down to a super affordable meal. You've got Turkish food, Yemeni food, Lebanese food, American cuisine, Indian food. I mean, the list goes on and on. And I'm just going to go ahead and take a moment to brag about it. We have some of the best restaurants in those cuisines specifically. So it's definitely a great opportunity for people to come out and try it.
I mean, Dearborn is nationally renowned for the kind of cuisines that are here. So I look at this map, a lot of it's on Michigan Avenue, but it seems like Restaurant Week has expanded in recent years. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I mean, over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a lot of restaurants that have asked to jump on board that were outside of the downtown corridors, and we said, why not? I mean, it's an opportunity and it's another draw, another reason for some of the potential customers to come out and try something else in Dearborn. So
now the space we're in, the Great Commoner, this is your space.
that is correct.
And it has a very special story. And I know you're a humble guy, but I feel like we need to share about it because, I mean, you come in here and this is an amazing piece of history, whether it's the floors, the tile, the walls, everything. There is a meticulousness about this place. And I know you're a humble guy, but I really would love for you to share a little bit of the story about the Great Commoner, which of course is part of Restaurant Week.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ford Land had acquired this city block right here, and the Wagner Hotel, which is this was actually built in 1896. So the corner building itself was built in 1896. Once the space was offered up to us, we decided to create a super unique concept for it, which is the Great Commoner. It's a boutique break cafe. We offer brunch, we offer lunch, and then we also just rolled out our new dinner service, which is offered Thursday through Sunday. It's a great Mediterranean American mix. You've got an incredible fusion of foods. I mean, you have to come out and try it for yourself. I'll leave it at that, I think.
Well, yeah, and the space, it's from before the turn of the century.
Oh yeah. So a lot of the floors are historic. So the hardwood floors that you're standing on right now or sitting on is, from 1896. The tile floors, same thing. Everything that we could preserve or bring back to life, we did to really give the space a uniqueness.
Yeah, and it definitely shows. We're actually in the Wagner room.
We call this the Wagner room. Yep.
Yeah. And there's a great glass thing. You can actually look all the way out onto Michigan Avenue. I can see some of the patrons. And this is available for rentals as well, right?
Yeah, so private bookings, if you have a private event or you have a corporate meeting that you want to host, a lunch and learn. So yeah, we get a lot of inquiries for that.
Yeah, it's no secret I'm a fan of historic preservation. So I appreciate what Sam did with this. And this was an icon in downtown West Dearborn for a long time, the building itself. I mean, it really kind of sits at the crossroads of West Dearborn here. So to have it reinvigorated, I mean, it's had a history, as Sam mentioned. It was a bridal shop, and that's cool, but I never got to go in the bridal shop. Why would I go in there? So having it as a place that actually, as the name reflects, people here who live in Dearborn and are visiting can come in here and experience and sit here and kind of watch the world go by on Michigan Avenue is really cool. And it just speaks to kind of even the larger development that Ford's doing. And we've talked on the show about some of the cool places. Jolly Pumpkin I've talked about, and Mint 29, and some of my favorite restaurants here in Dearborn. It's been a really great over the last few years, really kind of since let's say 2017. There's been an incredible amount of development here in Dearborn, a lot of new restaurants.
How has this revitalization been for your business? Because this area, I've been going to Dearborn for years, mostly because of the food, and I'm a big fan of Greenfield Village and the Henry Ford and all that. This area really feels like it's had a glow up here on Michigan Avenue.
Absolutely. I mean, over the last 10 years, I mean, everything that the city has done to bring this to life, working with Ford Land and whatnot, it's given us an opportunity to truly showcase what Dearborn really is. And some of the history that we have here. Some of these buildings are just, they're so gorgeous. It's hard for us not to show them off. Even Brome Eatery, it was a previous bank that was built in the early 1900s. I don't know if you guys remember Dearborn Jewelers, and so that was renovated, and we actually left their original flooring there too, and reused the railroad, what do you call them, the
actual rails?
Yeah, the rails to create wood shelves on the walls.
Oh yeah, the railroad ties. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Now I'm
from the train station. Yeah. So I feel like the overall development in downtown has created such a great synergy and allowed for more and more companies to come down and restaurants to open up. So,
And I think it's been a part of a greater success story in Dearborn. If you look at the 2020 census, Dearborn is one of the few cities in Metro Detroit that held their own or grew. And I think obviously everything has multiple reasons to it, but I think this is part of that overall success story.
Yeah, well, like you said, I mean, I know that that the leaders of the city were very happy, both previous and current, to be able to talk about the fact that Dearborn was one of the few places that actually grew in population, and that bucked a lot of the trends of other cities. So it's amazing. We're truly a growing city. And you mentioned the Greenfield Village, and that's another thing that I think makes it unique is, other cities have to become destinations, but people come to Dearborn, sometimes not even for the food. They come to Greenfield Village. So you have international visitors coming to Greenfield Village.
Yeah, I think locally we don't appreciate.
we take it for granted. I'll tell you that, because if you look at it, they've got incredible events like Halloween nights and holiday nights. And, you see a lot of that traffic. You'll have kids, dressed up for Halloween, and then, where were you? They're at Greenfield Village for the night, and then they come for dinner, and then they head home. So, and you get a lot of out-of-towners. So it's awesome.
Visit Detroit will talk about all the people that come. That is the kind of like the Convention and Visitors Bureau for Metro Detroit, if people don't know. They'll talk about all the people that come into Metro Detroit because of all the great things that are there at Greenfield Village and Henry Ford. And there is just so much opportunity to capitalize on that. And I think that's part of what this part of Dearborn also has been able to do, because it's just a hop, a skip, and a jump away.
Yeah, it really is.
Down the street, you have literally a global cuisine from Greenfield Village, and that's really cool.
And there's a lot of talk about Michigan Central Station in Corktown, but also right across the street from that, all that tourist stuff is the new design center, which we mentioned on a previous episode of
Central
the show.
Campus.
Yeah, Central Campus. Yep, this is what they're calling it. So that's another way to grab people into this area,
Yeah, you also have the Ford element of people coming, obviously workers from Ford to the global company. People come in for meetings. People come in from out of town, out of state, out of country to meet at Ford, to do business with Ford. So you also have the international element there. So it truly is kind of a little bit of a crossroads of all sorts of activity and people coming in from all sorts of other cities and states.
All right, Sam, if people want to know more about Dearborn Restaurant Week, where can they go?
Well, just go jump onto DearbornRestaurantWeek.com. You'll have a list of restaurants there. A lot of the menus will be uploaded and the pricing as well. You can also follow us on Instagram, which is at Dearborn Restaurant Week, and also at Dearborn Gov. So they've been doing a wonderful job of reposting and sharing all that information. It is being held starting today, and it's going to go for 2 weekends. So this weekend all the way through the end of next weekend, which is unique to Restaurant Week. So you have 2 opportunities. If you miss it this weekend, don't miss out next weekend. Make your reservations. A lot of these places do book up, so it's a wonderful opportunity, and you get it at a really good price. So I hope everybody comes down and picks a restaurant or two and checks us out.
How do I deal with what I'm feeling? Maybe I just don't. What you're doing.
Devin, there's just so much to talk about.
There is, Jer. I mean, there's all sorts of fun stuff going on. What do we want to get to first?
Well, first off, we are coming up on your favorite holiday of the year.
This is true. I may or may not have a countdown clock in my kitchen.
That's impressive.
It's
That's dedication.
It's an old school. It's like a 1982 hand dial. So I have to go down and put down 14 days to St. Patrick's Day, 13 days to St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, you love doing that, though. You love I'm sure you love it. It builds the anticipation.
It does build the anticipation and helps me know where the focus should lie and when I need to start cooking my food and getting my party ready.
So have you done your shopping yet?
No.
Okay, so what's ahead? Let's tell people who might be interested in partaking in a O'Reilly-style St. Patrick's Day.
Sure. Well, here's the standards. Food-wise, you have 2 options. You can do the Guinness Irish stew, which is, you slow cook beef stew or lamb with Guinness beer, carrots, potatoes, that whole thing. Carrots and potatoes are going to be the base of any food you do. So you can do the Guinness stew, or you can do the corned beef, which obviously you need to buy ahead of time, which hopefully you can get at your local market, and then you just slow cook the heck out of that corned beef with.
So when you say slow cook, what does that mean? How long?
Well, in a slow cooker, you're probably going to want to do 8 hours. Or if you have like a roasting pot, you could do about 4 hours in there. You know, if you have one of those Creuset type pots, Dutch ovens, you can do it about 4 hours in there. But you want to get all the good stuff in there, the carrots, the potatoes, the cabbage, if you like. And yeah, you just got to get it nice and tender, and pour some Guinness on there too. No matter what, if you're doing the corned beef, put some Guinness in there too. It'll just make it taste better.
A touch of the iris, or like with Tullamore Dew, like an angel pissing on your tongue, they say.
That's what they say at Nancy's. So that's you got your food. You have soda bread. Soda bread is a more kind of a spongier, fluffier with the raisins type of bread, and then shortbread, which is more dense, buttery type of more of a cookie.
Okay.
So those are your basic food, your 4 basic food groups of St. Patrick's Day.
Out of all of this, what is your favorite?
Well, I mean that would be hard to say, but I really do like a good soda bread because then you can dip it into the Guinness stew or eat it in a corned beef sandwich. And that really makes it. So I think soda bread out of all 4 is my favorite. But outside of your 4 basic food groups, of course, you need to have your Guinness beer. You need to have your Tully, your Tullamore Dew, Bushmills, Jameson, something of that variety, of course. Maybe if I'm too old for, what are they? I know, are we allowed to call them Irish car bombs anymore? I mean, I don't know if we change the name. It sounds a little bad, but that's what we called them, Irish car bombs.
That's what you called them back in the day. I don't know if there's a new name for them.
Well, I'm just going to call it that because that's all I got. But you're taking a half a pint of Guinness. You're dropping a little depth charge of Jameson with Bailey's in there, and you just chug it down.
All right. There's a couple of big things coming up too. You've got the Corktown Music Festival this weekend.
Yes, that'll be awesome. Some great music. I mean, that's the other your final element for a good Irish party is you got to have the good music. You got to have the traditional Irish music.
And then the parade is coming too. Like I got to give people the heads up because a lot of people, they need to get prepared for this if you're going to do it.
It's a big deal, Jerry. I mean, if you haven't been, you should definitely go. And if you've been, you know how crazy you can get. If you don't get a spot early, you might be 3 or 4 people behind on Michigan Avenue there. Especially
dependent on the weather. Some years that I've been where there's warmer weather, oh boy, like busy.
Oh my goodness, yeah, it gets really loud and a lot of revelers. And careful, get there early if you're gonna take on the St. Patrick's Day party. I believe it starts at 12 or 1. I'm not exactly sure, but I would get there in the morning.
Let's get into some stories around town. One that I think some listeners have been telling me about and some newsletter readers that I had an idea that was happening, but finally, according to a Securities and Exchange Commission filing, we now know kind of the state of the publicly traded mortgage industry in Metro Detroit between both Rocket and UWM. Now, UWM's out in Pontiac. They cut about 2,000 jobs. Rocket companies, now both these companies lost money in the last quarter, but Rocket cut down from 26,000 people down to 18,500. That's knocking off a good 7,500 employees. Many of them would be in downtown Detroit. And I feel like we're starting to get a clearer picture of the multifacets around what's happening in Detroit. I had heard rumors. I'd had listeners tell me, hey, I want to know more things about X or Y because I don't work downtown anymore. Rocket let me go. So I didn't have an idea of numbers. And of course, the great thing about publicly traded companies, we eventually learn these things. I mean, I don't think it's a death knell of anything, but still, when you take out a small town worth of employees, that's going to have a hit.
It is, but it shouldn't be surprising, truly. I mean, this isn't something that people should be surprised about. We've experienced highs and lows in the mortgage industry. It's obviously a very volatile industry. So when you're tying, everything, UWM and Rocket are 2 of the largest employers in the state, but both of them are tied to the mortgage industry. And we've experienced a boom, but the housing market has kind of cooled a bit. And so this is reflecting that.
They're both having to make adjustments. And in the overall Metro Detroit housing market, things are actually starting to cool a bit, which is kind of the idea behind raising all those interest rates.
Yes, exactly. So, interest rates go up. Obviously, it's less appealing to buy. And so, yeah, things have cooled and there's going to be layoffs. Now,
it's cyclical, just like the auto industry, right? These are cycles.
I was just going to say, Jer, it would be totally also unsurprising for a number of these jobs, maybe not all of them, a number of these jobs to come back in the next couple of years if the market picks up again. So again, this is just the ebbs and flows, and it's the nature of the industry.
Right. But I do think it adds another piece to the puzzle that we've been covering the last few weeks. I did the piece on Detroit Public Television. One of the things that listeners really talk about is that idea that downtown during the week doesn't have as many people as it does during the weekends. And I think when you do this as just one piece of a multifaceted puzzle. And just like we were talking about off air, because I mentioned earlier in the week that Lost River is on hiatus indefinitely. They've got their own issues going on there that are completely unrelated to this. So like you have to look at the thing and go, it's usually not one thing, but when in a challenging market, when there's other challenges going on, that can kind of push things forward.
Yeah, people want the answers to be simple, and they're not always that simple. A restaurant closing doesn't necessarily mean it was because it's, it doesn't mean it's a COVID casualty. It also doesn't mean that it's just a staffing thing. It could be a multitude of things, and in most cases, it is a multitude of factors.
Have you seen a lot of people, and I have, kind of like paste their own ideas on what it is?
Exactly. It will, how you feel about things, whether it's, COVID or whether it's, employees and, worker shortages, whatever you feel is the issue, inflation. Some people blame inflation for a place closing. Whatever you feel strongly about, you're going to kind of use that as the reason why all these things happen. And just, the reality is, and you need to give yourself a reality check, is always a combination of things.
Now let's go down to Wyandotte, the Wayne County suburb. Well, I mean, it's one of the original cities of Wyandotte. Like Wyandotte was the stop where in the fur trade, like that was the last stop before Detroit when you took your canoe to trade, your furs because, back in the day. But Wyandotte's been seeing such a huge, I don't know if I want to call it resurgence, but just a lot of investment lately. I was just there last weekend at a coffee shop, like cute little triangular place. I cannot remember. I think it's called The Lounge. And there's so much happening there. Like when I was walking through there, it was a really young crowd throughout downtown Wyandotte. And it looks like there is another project coming online at the site of the former city hall over on Biddle Street.
Yeah, so with Wyandotte, I mean, obviously somewhat of a neighbor of Dearborn. I've heard a lot of people refer to Wyandotte as kind of the Royal Oak of Downriver.
Really?
The Royal Oak of Downriver. It would not be the first time. I'm not going to take credit for coining that because I've heard it many times, and that kind of gives you a vibe if you haven't been to Wyandotte, what it is. And it's got a beautiful downtown, old downtown, but a lot of like bars and restaurants. A lot of nightlife is there. A lot of young people from the towns and cities south of there will often go to Wyandotte. It's also got a beautiful waterfront.
Very accessible too.
Very accessible. So yeah, there continues to be development in Wyandotte. There's some really good entrepreneurs there. You've got people like the owners of the Whiskeys on the Water who are doing a lot of developments. In addition to just Whiskeys on the Water.
Recently, Randy went to Iron Gate.
Fantastic little bar there. There's also Irish bar. So anyway, they've got a ton of diversity in terms of the types of businesses and the nightlife. And with some of this investment, they're putting better use to their downtown city hall.
Well, that building, I think, was like a former retail space, kind of worn down. This is a $9.7 million project, but I will mention that there is $1.5 million coming from a Michigan Community Revitalization Program loan. There is money coming from a Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. There's Michigan's strategic fund approval money. There's a grant from their DDA. There's a revolving fund loan. So not just in Detroit does it take multiple pieces of financing to make something like this happen, because this is a real complete reimagination of the space from, kind of like a retail furniture store into what's looking like, if you look at renderings here, like 4 or 5 stories with mixed use and everything.
Yeah, that mixed use 4/1 type of scenario, which
super popular
because it fits the space. And like you said, I'm glad you pointed that out, Jer, because even projects that are not as large, I mean, this is large. Hey, it's all relative. 9.7 million isn't small, but a smaller town project like this requires so many different levers and tools on the economic development side to get it done in terms of grants and tax credits and et cetera. None of this is easy, and all these projects, require some of that stuff. Very rarely is someone just getting out a checkbook and writing down the cost to develop a whole project out of their pocket.
Well, it's like that conversation that I had earlier this week. When it comes to any place that's not a greenfield, there is an additional amount of money that needs to be spent. I'm looking at an article here from the News Herald from the area to get a few more details. It was a former federal building, like federal department store. They're actually going to be rehabilitating the 2-story building and then adding 3 stories on top. That's the actual deal behind it. I want to make sure I got my facts correct.
Yeah, and I mean, a great use for it. They'll get some retail. I'm sure we'll get some food, dining, beverage concepts in there. I think more people. I've seen more. There's recently a downtown Wyandotte housing development, residential. So I think you're going to see more apartments and condos in downtown Wyandotte just because of the great location, the amenities, and nearby the water. So I think Wyandotte is smartly moving a little bit more to increase their capacity for like downtown condos and apartments.
I also know a number of listeners who've moved there during the COVID times because there's been a lot of scrambling with all of that. And so it's one of the reasons I mention it is in my inbox, go check out Wyandotte more. And also I know we've got quite a few requests for Mount Clemens. We are going to get up there. It's just a matter of timing and everything else. Actually, I want to get up there when it's a little bit warmer. There is a super cool old ice cream shop that I want to check out there.
Well, Jerry, you're the sweets
If I
man.
drive, will you come with me?
I will go with you, Jerry. We'll go to Mount Clemens. I know we have some listeners up that way.
All right, it would be wonderful. We'll share an ice cream.
Yeah, get your own ice cream, Jerry. Get your own ice cream. No, we won't share.
All right. Well, with that, we are done for today. Thank you to the hospitality of the Great Commoner on Michigan Avenue. You're going to want to check it out. We tried some of the breakfasts. Holy wow, I had no idea.
Oh gosh, the bagels and lox was fantastic. The waffles, the way they do the waffles here is amazing. So come check it out for breakfast, lunch, dinner, coffee. You can do it all here. Hang out just like we did.
And if you want us to come to your establishment, dailydetroit@gmail.com. We're going to be on the road a lot in this coming 2023. We want to be back out there, you know?
That's the goal, Jer. Look, man about town cannot stay in one place very long. So I'm out there. You're getting out there, and we're sharing it with the people.
All right. Well, with that, I am Jer Stays.
I'm Devin O'Reilly.
Thank you so much for listening to Your Daily Detroit. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around town.